How to buy a house in Orlando. So you want to buy a house. Where do you start? In this video, you're going to get to follow along with a real first-time home buyer that I've just met who's starting their search for home ownership here in the Orlando, Lake Nona area. If you're currently renting and you've been thinking about buying or building a home, but don't know where to start, then this video is for you. I'm going to take you through the most logical strategy on how to find the right home at the right price that I've used for many of my buyer clients. We're going to look at how much house you can afford, different types of mortgages you can get, and the length of time that the process takes, whether it's a resale or new construction. So stick around, you might learn something. And if it's your first time here, be sure and subscribe for more informative videos just like this one. So let's get into it right now. Tell me more about you guys. What's your story and what got you thinking about wanting to look at a house?
We've been renting for the past 5 years. We're just getting to the point now where we want a home. We started looking around at developments last week. I think the one that's most interesting to us right now that we have Moss Park Preserve. So we're not really familiar with the process. Of course, we would be first-time home buyers.
Yeah, well, I mean, you came to the right place. We do relocations with people coming from all across the country, all across the world. There's a lot of questions you have about how does the process work and how does it compare to, let's say, hunting for a resale home. All right, so the first thing I like to do is figure out how much house can we afford. Let's say you have two borrowers. Both people are providing income for this purchase. And borrower one, I'm going to use generic numbers here. This may or may not be your guys' income, but it shows you an example of what this monthly payment could work out to. It doesn't mean you're going to use this entire pre-approval amount and go to your max, but it kind of gives you a ballpark. So first borrower, let's say they have a W-2 salary of $50,000 a year. And let's say borrower two is self-employed. Self-employed people have to show 2 years of tax returns to show their income they claim. And you have to have your adjusted gross income on your self-employed tax returns, at least making the same money over the course of 2 years or increasing in value. But let's say borrower two was self-employed and over the past 2 years their tax returns showed an AGI of $75,000. This cell right here shows the combined gross monthly income. That's pre-tax. It's just what do you guys bring in every year divided by 12. This box here is a conservative estimate of what lenders call their debt ceiling. This is a ratio they look at, which is the maximum amount of money you can spend per month on housing and debt service. Now, different lenders are going to have different debt ceilings. That's why when we really dial this in, I'm going to introduce you to various lender partners that I work with, and you can go through and do their pre-approval process, and they'll really look at all your numbers, your income, your debts, and give you a more exact figure. But again, this is just a big picture, okay? Next box, your debt minimums. This is where you would go through and look at the minimum payments only on any credit cards you have, your car loans you carry, your student loans, typically a couple credit cards, right, with some minimum payments, and maybe a car payment or two. So let's put in here $1,000 as the minimum amount we have to pay per month. Well, this box here is the maximum amount of money you can spend on your monthly mortgage, including taxes, home insurance, and HOA. And of course, principal and interest. So that's quite a bit of money on housing. This theoretical couple that makes $50,000 and $75,000 and doesn't have a ton of debt, maybe it's a couple car payments, they could spend up to $3,600 a month on a house. And that's assuming great credit and 20% down. So you don't have any PMI. PMI is called private mortgage insurance. And if you have anything less than 20% down, like 5% down or FHA, 3.5% down, you'll have to pay monthly mortgage insurance. And again, those lenders will help you price that out. So just remember this number for a second, this $3,600 number, because I'm gonna bring over one more spreadsheet and we're gonna talk about some theoretical houses here in the Lake Nona area, and you'll see how those compare. Okay, so this is another simple spreadsheet to help people see a comparison. I use it for buyers, myself included, when I was buying this home. I punched in the purchase price, the taxes, the HOA, and I wanted to see what my monthly payment would be given a specific interest rate. We're going to do two columns here. I call this a townhome on the left-hand side, $250,000, and a single-family home, such as some of those you saw in Moss Park Preserve, for around $400,000. With 20% down, that really helps you get the lowest monthly payment because you won't have any PMI. There's obviously other options like 10% down is kind of a sweet spot. That's a great way to go because you're not having to fork over as much cash. 10% on $400,000 is still $40,000 you got to have to close plus closing costs. And you still would have a little bit of PMI, but if your credit is good, it won't be that much. But for this scenario, let's just look at 20% down first. So you can see amount down on the townhome, $50,000 and $80,000 on the single family. Now interest rates right now, I just closed a deal today at 2.35%. Super low interest rates right now for people that have good credit. As I pull up the MLS and show you some different listings. In this particular area here in Lake Nona, I'm sure you've heard some of this term called CDD fee. Many of the neighborhoods here have what's called a CDD fee, Community Development District. What that is an extra fee in your taxes. So instead of just a regular millage rate of, let's say, $18 per thousand of value, your taxes are going to be a little bit higher in that neighborhood that has a CDD fee. Now, Moss Park Preserve does not have one. Those taxes will be a little bit lower than, let's say, Loria Park, where I'm sitting right now. So on a $400,000 house, the taxes in this area could be around $6,800 a year. If you homestead that property on January 1, the year after you purchase the home, that will go down a little bit. During the course of buying the home, you're going to shop for a home insurance policy with a insurance vendor, and they're going to quote you 1 year of home insurance for that home. If the home is newer and it has a newer roof, dual pane windows, energy efficient features like many of these newer homes have, you'll qualify for discounts. That way, if the home has a plumbing leak or a roof leak or fire or lightning or hurricane, you're just paying your deductible to fix whatever happened. HOAs. So HOAs vary from neighborhood to neighborhood. With townhomes, it's always going to be more expensive because it's covering the roof, it's covering the landscaping, the paint on the outside, and therefore you pay a higher HOA because you don't have to think about any kind of maintenance. But in general, I see a lot of townhomes with HOA payments between $275 and upwards of $350 a month, depending on the amenities in the neighborhood. Single family homes, however, a little bit less expensive when it comes to HOA payment. And sometimes the HOAs do include internet, cable TV, the community pool, community gym. We're going to use these examples here, $275 for the townhome and $166 for the single family. Now let's see the numbers. Townhome on the left, single family on the right. First of all, down payment, we saw that, right, on the previous sheet. All these costs here are closing costs related to getting the loan. If you were to buy these homes with cash, the only closing cost you would have would be a few $100s in title fees to get the deed transferred over. Cash is the cheapest way to buy a home. But we don't all have $400,000 lying around, right?
Right.
This is just a cost of using leverage. And right now rates are really low, so the more you can get lended to you, the better. So as you can see, the closing expenses, they stack up. It's $7,000 to $9,000 of closing costs on top of that down payment. So when you look at your bank account and you say, I want to go buy a house, and you say, I might have 5% down, I think I can afford that house, don't forget there's going to be closing costs on top of that down payment. In some cases, we can try and negotiate for some closing cost credits back to the buyer, such as on certain new constructions, if you use their preferred lender, they typically offer credit towards closing costs. If you ask a seller for closing costs currently, if their home is priced right, they really don't need to give buyers any closing costs in this market currently. So here we go. This is the numbers that we want to compare and contrast to the how much house can I afford spreadsheet. On the left, principal and interest. For 30 years, that's going to go pay down the loan. This is the tax portion. Every month, this portion goes into what's called an escrow account. Your mortgage loan servicer keeps track of when your taxes get paid in November. And they collect this little chunk of money and they put it in an escrow account. And in November, when your tax bill comes out, they pay the tax bill for you, so you don't have to worry about it. The home insurance, same thing. When you close on the home, I don't know if you noticed up here, 1 year's insurance. You pay a whole year's of home insurance up front, and that's built into the closing costs. Throughout the course of the year, your payment takes out 1/12 of the next year's home insurance policy to be paid out the next year. HOA, usually that's paid separately. It's not paid to your mortgage servicer, but I like to include it in this calculation because it's a big chunk of your monthly payment for your housing. So with 20% down and low mortgage rates on this theoretical $250,000 townhome, it's very affordable to purchase a $250,000 townhome given these parameters. $1,500 a month, that's cheaper than most rents, and you get a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath townhome with a 1 or 2 car garage. The single family at $400,000, higher price point obviously, more money down. Down at the bottom you see the principal and interest is still reasonable, given the interest rate. Taxes, it's much higher. You know, when you're talking $6,800 a year in taxes, that's a big chunk of money, $560 a month coming out for your taxes. And then HOA is a little bit lower. So there you go, $2,130 a month, almost $2,200 a month. If you had $89,000 saved, that would be your monthly payment. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share these spreadsheets with you. I'm gonna email them to you, and you'll be able to play around with the numbers. So as you can see, your borrowing power is at an all-time high, which is why so many people that are renting are coming out of the woodwork and saying, you know, maybe I should buy something. Okay, so I'll let you play around with that. And I'm also going to introduce you to some lender partners so you can really dial it in. Because if 20% down is not in the cards, that's okay. FHA is 3.5% down, and the PMI on an FHA loan is typically less because you end up paying a little bit of the monthly mortgage insurance up front as part of the closing costs. Whereas conventional loans at, let's say, 5% or 10%, once you reach 78% loan to value, where your equity gained because the market grew or you made improvements to the home, you can just call up your lender and say, hey, I have 20% equity, please drop off that PMI, and they're required to do so. Let's take a look at the MLS real quick. Let's look at some actual listings here in the Lake Nona area. And some of these new constructions will pop up because they are inventory homes. Some builders advertise what's called inventory homes, where they've already started a build, and you don't get to pick out any finishes, but you might get a better deal on it because they package everything together. Versus if you want to build a brand new home and you want to pick out your lot, you got to start from how much is the lot premium on that lot? Then what's the base price of the home? Then what structural options am I going to pick? Do I want to add that 5th bedroom? Well, that's a $30,000 structural option. Then I'm going to go to the design center and spend 6, 7, 8, even 10% of the base price in the design center on upgrades, better countertops, better backsplash, bigger cabinets. Before you know it, the price of your home has increased from the base price by 30%. And the build time takes about 10 months. That's why if you can discover an inventory home where the builder's designer pretty much picked everything that most people would pick, and it's going to be ready in 4 to 6 months, that can be a great option to consider. So that neighborhood you were talking about is along Moss Park Road, just east of the 417. And it's tucked in here, and look, there's a listing. Let's take a look at it. It says it's going to be ready pretty much next month.
Okay.
All right. It's a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath with 2281 square feet, priced at $398,990. We can get you all of the finishes they chose for this inventory home, all the colors of the wood and the prices that they would have paid if you had built it yourself. Down at the bottom here, you can see the HOA fee is $365 per quarter. So that's relatively low compared to the spreadsheet we were just using. And then the taxes right now, it's only based on dirt value alone. So the first year you were to occupy this home in November, your tax bill is only going to be a few $100s. But then next year it'll get assessed as house on lot. If it does not have a CDD fee, you can use about 1.5% to 1.6% of the market price. If you do have a CDD fee, depending on how high it is, you might want to be safe to go 1.7 to 1.8%. And a great website for you to go in, at least in our county, is Orange County Property Appraiser. You can type in the address of the property, and you can see the breakdown on this tab of all the taxes. This is where your homestead would pop up. This is where the CDD fee would be called out down here. They show you the finishes. And with this one, it's only a month away, so it probably has drywall, cabinets in there, countertops. It might have flooring going in soon. So that's a good one to make an offer on if you're ready with your finances. It's also good to go inside inventory homes because you get a feel for the space, right? And you say to yourself, I kind of like this floor plan, but I would do it a little bit differently. And if the builder still has lots available in that same section of the neighborhood, or they're releasing a new section, you'll have the confidence of the fact you just walked through a new version of that plan to just say, I want that lot with this plan and these options. So with the new builders, they're going to have their own contracts. And every builder's sales process is slightly different. But for the most part, it's about identifying the lot, checking lot premiums, base prices. Some have their lot premiums rolled in. Everything's included, but in most cases, not everything's included. Some require 5% down at the time of signing the contract, and then you just come up with your loan at the very end. You have to get pre-qualified with the builder's preferred lender within the first 30 days. So you can show that you could actually afford to get a mortgage on the home when they're done building it. But you're welcome to shop around and bring your own lender at the end of the process if you find that they give you a better rate. With resale homes, it's a little more simple. You get your pre-qualification letter from a lender that says, I have reviewed this customer's income, assets, debts, and credit, and I can approve them for a mortgage amount of $400,000 purchase price with X% down, 10% down, 20% down. Now you have that letter. That's your ticket to go make an offer on a resale home. When a seller sells a home, they're required to fill out what's called a seller's disclosure. And that is that knowledge of the home and if anything's gone wrong. So it's going to ask that seller questions like, is the roof leaking? Yes or no. Has the plumbing ever leaked? Yes or no. And they're going to have to answer those questions. And we can go over this, and it gives us an idea of the history of the home, similar to a Carfax when you're buying a car. So when you make your offer, you can take this into account. When we do make an offer and the seller accepts our number, there might be some counter offering in there. Once the offer is accepted and we have both signatures on the contract, you'll be required to put up an earnest money deposit to the title company of typically around 1% of the purchase price. That money goes towards the purchase of the home. It sits at the title company, the neutral party that's going to close the transaction. Now, during the first 7 to 15 days, that is your inspection period. So you get to hire a home inspector to go up into the attic of the home, check out the roof, turn on all the appliances, look for any signs of termites, water damage, and they give you this inspection report for you to decide if you want to continue with the purchase or if there's some major issues that you want to renegotiate with that seller, or just back out of the deal because it's not for you. If you do back out of the deal during your inspection period, you get your earnest money deposit back. After the inspection period's over, you agree to continue with the home. Now, the financing is really getting going. This is where the lender is asking you for lots of documents, bank statements, history of employment, maybe a letter of exception explaining why you had a large deposit or withdrawal from your account 6 months ago, okay? They'll need lots of information from you to send to their underwriting team to get your loan approved. They're also going to order an independent appraisal. They're going to send an appraiser to this home, and that appraiser is going to try to find 3 comparable sales to justify the contract price that you're under. Now it's just a matter of getting any final documents to that lender and getting the clear to close. And as I said before, they're verifying your employment again. They're literally calling up your employer or going onto the employer's website and saying, are they still employed? It's a very important deal. You're going to see the final settlement statement with all of your closing cost breakdown. And you'll remember the spreadsheet that we looked at in the beginning of this phone call as to what is my cash to close requirement? What is the money I got to have in my bank account on the day of closing to be able to buy this house?
Quick question for you. So let's say, for instance, we go through that whole deal. From the time that the seller agrees to our price to the time that we have to have the down payment, what is the typical span within that time frame?
Typically 45 days. From the time of submitting your offer and getting acceptance from the seller to when you actually close on the home is typically about 45 days. Sometimes buyer and seller will both agree to do a slightly longer closing of 60 days, just in case there was a reason why the seller maybe needed more time to move out of their home. And maybe you're okay with that because your lease doesn't end for another 3 months. Back to the MLS. This more established neighborhood, North Lake Park, that has the YMCA membership included in your HOA payment. This has a 2-car garage. You come inside, they've got some new carpet and paint. You could always change the flooring. This has 4 bedrooms, all on one level. And some of these are starting to get totally redone. In fact, this same floor plan, I was walking through this home and one down the street the other day. Check out the difference to this one. Right near it, very similar floor plan, but look at the finishes inside. Totally redone. Looks like a brand new house. Got the white quartz. There's something to be said about comparing and contrasting brand new construction to slightly used homes, just a few years old, or homes that have been rehabilitated in neighborhoods you really like. This homework we're doing right now, you're ahead of the game just by kind of knowing your numbers, having your income ready, you know all your debts. That's the joys of home ownership. And when you do it right, you gain equity and you build wealth.
A lot of great information, Justin. Definitely appreciate the time. And I think you've answered pretty much every question. You've provided us knowledge of what goes into it. Our biggest goal is, to get out of this apartment because we're just paying too much for it. And thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, guys. And like I said, I'll follow up with you and we'll talk soon. All right. Have a good weekend. Nice to meet you. Bye. So there you go. Start to finish, how to buy your first home with lots of localized information for you here in the Orlando market to help you really know your numbers so you'll be ready to make that decision when the right home presents itself. If you'd like to take advantage of these spreadsheets that you saw in today's video, just shoot me an email with your criteria and I'll customize them for you so you can play around with the numbers yourself and get a handle on how much house you could afford and compare it to the houses that are available in the area with our MLS auto searches. If this video was helpful to you, go ahead and smash that like button and consider subscribing to my channel because we're going to be rolling out more videos of the informative process as well as analyzing new construction homes from various builders. Thanks again for watching and we'll see you around the neighborhood.